to help me, who knows what they're doing. Not that Andy didn't, he did have a little clue. For those of you following our sermon series, it may feel like today we've hit rewind a little bit, taking us back to the beginning of the story. But we thought this was the perfect opportunity to share with the story, save it for the young uns all in together. It's an exciting story. I mean, the excitement level's already up here, isn't it, Andy? But that we could catch a fresh glimpse of this story, of what this message is. So just let me pray for a moment, and then I'll invite my comrade up. I can't see him. There he is. Father God, by your Spirit, move us from our awareness of something that may be familiar to us to being fascinated and inspired by young David's story. So actually, it's over to Daniel, or should that be David? Come on up. Daniel is going to give us an interesting take on the reading, which was otherwise 78 verses, or thereabouts. So Daniel has a dramatic reading for us to listen to. Listen out, I might be asking you some questions. You all right?
Is it on? Yeah. Hello. It don't work now. Hello. It is me, David. Since Samuel came and told me that one day I'd be king, not much has happened, really. At least, not until the other day. There's been this huge army of giant men who came to take over our land. They were called the Philistines. Their leader was the biggest of them all, and his name was Goliath. My brothers had gone to fight the giants, and I was left behind. I suppose I was too young to fight, really. Instead, Dad told me to pack lunch for my brothers and take it to them. Fighting is hungry work, you know. So I did. I also took my slingshot and some pebbles because I thought I might have time to practice hitting trees with it before I came home. So I got down to where the battle was happening and heard that Goliath had dared my brothers and the other soldiers to choose someone to fight him. And if their chosen soldier won, then the Philistines would go away. But if he won, then we would be his servants. My brothers, their friends, and the rest of our army were scared. No one wanted to fight Goliath and I, even though the king was promising the man who won lots of money and prizes. Goliath was saying all sorts of things about God that I knew were not true. And because I knew that God was with me, I offered to fight Goliath. The king tried to talk me out of it, and then he offered me his armor. But I knew that the only protection I needed was God. So I went with only my slingshot and my 5 round, smooth pebbles. I walked up to Goliath, and do you what? He laughed at me, because he didn't think I looked like a soldier. He made fun of my slingshot, and then told me that he was going to kill me and feed me to the birds. I stood firm, though. God is so much bigger and stronger than Goliath. So I put a pebble in my slingshot, aimed at his head, and whizz! It flew through the air and hit him right between the eyes. It was a great shot, and Goliath fell down flat on the floor. I quickly grabbed his sword, stabbed him with it just to make sure he wouldn't get up, and then cut off his head just to make sure. When the rest of the giants saw me do this, they were scared of me, and they ran far away. The king saw what I'd done, and instead of sending me back to look after the sheep, he took me to his palace, where I met his son, who is now my best friend, and I'll go and fight in lots of battles for the king. In fact, I'd better get back now. Goodbye.
Daniel, that was even better than I'd hoped. You're fabulous. Maybe I don't need to say much more, just leave the story to it, really. But let's have a quick little unpack. A couple of questions. You might need, we've got a slide there, James, we've got where the reference is. So this story is found in, next one, in 1 Samuel, chapter 17. There's a quick story there, chapter 17. Okay, quick questions, few minutes for the person next to you. Pop the questions up for me, Greg, please. We've got, why did David go to the site of the battle? Can you describe Goliath? You might need to look in on your phones, find 1 Samuel 17 for some more details. How do you think I'm getting you confused. How do you think David felt before he fought Goliath? Or how would you feel? And what were other people's reactions to David stepping out? I'll give you 2 minutes. Talk to somebody near you. It's gone quiet. Come on then. Why did David go to the site of the battle? Emily? To give his brothers lunch. Bread and cheese. Bread and cheese is always great to eat, isn't it, John? Bread and cheese. And I can't help thinking, if there's a battle going on, you didn't have TV, didn't have Netflix to watch, I reckon he probably wanted to know what was going on, don't you? A little bit of that. Lucy's nodding. Okay, anybody find any facts about Goliath? Big G, we can call him, Goliath. What did you find, Ollie? Do you know how tall he was? Haven't got that far yet, not to worry. Emma? 6 cubits and a span. Well, we reckon that he's probably, anybody else got it in metric? Worked it out in metric? In metres? Imperial? What we got? Almost 7 feet. I've read 9 foot somewhere, but I don't know. It's interesting. So he was bigger than Andy by a long shot. If you go on to the next slide, actually, where the version I read said over 9 feet tall, 2.74 metres. Oh, and hide that again. What was he carrying? He had a 10-foot spear. He was huge. Really, really big and muscly. I love the fact that it said that he had his javelin slung on his back. And I don't think it was one of those sort of ones that you use for Olympics. It was a big beastie. And he had his own shield bearer. So actually, when Goliath went forward, poor guy carrying the shield went first. We could have got you one of those, Andy, a shield bearer. So, how do you think David felt before he fought Goliath? Did anyone? Yeah, he could have been scared. Daniel, what did you think? Because you read it. How was David, actually? He believed God was with him, yeah. And Lucy was getting having some nice feedback down there. She was chatting about what it would be like if you came up against that giant. And, well, God had seen David's heart as he grew up, and he'd marked him out to lead Israel. And so during his time as a shepherd, including what would have been long periods of isolation out on that hillside, David's relationship with God had developed to one of great trust. It was a relationship sort of developed and shaped by daily circumstances, one where he learnt to trust in him for protection, to save him from bears and lions, and learning on particular occasions that God even gave him the strength to deal with those wild animals when they snatched his sheep away. He went after, grabbed the sheep, and killed the lion, and similarly with a bear. So maybe Killing a 9-foot-plus giant was just the next step. David's faith that day was amazing, especially given the context of what the others said about him. And to him, he was taunted, he was scoffed at by his brother. I don't know if you read that bit, have another good look over it. His brother was like, what are you doing here? He was really angry, he didn't want him butting in, and probably was concerned that his kid brother was going to show him up. So he was doubted by King Saul, who said, you're just a boy. And he was hated and jeered at by Goliath, Big G himself, who cursed him and undermined him when he stepped forward. Yet David held firm. And it was that challenge of Goliath when Goliath shouted out, who is going to come? Who of you among the armies of God are going to come and fight me? That really got under David's skin. He was indignant at that audacity, that Goliath was thinking he was more powerful than the army of the living God. I guess he was also pretty stunned at the way the army of the living God were quaking in their boots. They even ran away. King Saul himself was daunted. The Philistines were recorded, or have been recorded, as a really formidable army with advanced weaponry. And there was this huge champion. And rather than leading the Israelites from the front, like kings did in that time, and that we've got record of King Saul wanting to be at the front at other occasions, he's back in his tent in the camp, and he's offering out incentives for other people to go and do it. Wealth, a beautiful princess or his daughter, and interestingly, no taxes for his family to have to pay the person who did it. He wanted someone else to step up. And so where we see King Saul kind of trying to get someone else to do it, it's David who speaks the words of a faithful leader, or a priest even. He's encouraging faith in God. He says, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. Daniel steps up. David was aware that even though the Israelites were overshadowed by their enemy, God was with them, and that meant they had nothing to fear. And his words echo those of God's promise in Deuteronomy chapter 20, where Moses speaks over the people of Israel and says, for the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies. David's not discouraged even by Saul trying to put him off for being too young. He lays out his credentials. He says, talks about the time that God had been faithful in keeping him safe. In verse 37, it says, the Lord saved me from the paw of the lion, from the paw of the bear, and he'll save me from the powerful hands of the Philistine too. What I also love is that David realizes he can't do things Saul's way. When he's offered to wear Saul's armor, sometimes we think of it as being too big, but it's that he's not used to it. He says, I can't wear this, I'm not used to it. And I think, hang on, 2 ticks. Lost my spot. It reminds me that we don't all come at a problem or situation in the same way. And actually, neither should we expect to, or expect it of others sometimes. David relies on his own equipping, his unique gifts that he's been given, and his experiences. And that combined with a deep, deep trust that God is for him. We see that David is not even discouraged when Goliath despises him for stepping forward. Verse 45. I think the verses, we've got it on there, Greg, if we can go to it. David said to Goliath, you are coming to fight against me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, but I'm coming against you in the name of the Lord who rules over all. We love stories like this. Think of the films and the books where the underdog or the youngest of a set of brothers or sisters or characters has their day. And it's uplifting. We gain hope, thinking, well, if he can do it for David, what can I do? In secular tales or films, our heroes are often training relentlessly. Even Kung Fu Panda is working out with his teacher, or somebody going to the gym. I remember Kyle saying, I used to be working on my outside, my muscles, but now I'm being baptised and I'm following Jesus for all I need. Other stories may throw in a magical element or the assistance of a helper or a greater power. But here, clear as day, David stands and declares and acts in the name and power of God. His courage and faith stem from what he knows about God, not what he thinks about himself or what other people think about him. He simply stands where God can use him. Throughout his life going forward, God continues to use David and his often complicated story as part and in line of the one who then comes to demonstrate God's love for all humanity, Jesus of the line of David. So what about us? There are many times in our complex and busy lives where we need to have courage to navigate our way through. David had to trust God with a big thing when fighting Goliath, but we can trust God with everything, big or small. So how about you? There's another slide, please. What giants do people face in their lives today? Or more personally, what giant might you be facing this week? What things do people put their faith in to face those giants? Is it self-improvement? Is it escapism? Is it eating? What do other people put their faith in? And what might it look like to put faith in God instead? Today or in the week ahead, my challenge is to think about whether you could trust God with something in your life. Maybe you trust him for most of your life. Maybe there's something that you think, I'm not sure he can deal with this. Think what you might want to say to God about it. Pray. Give it a try. Sometimes in life it might feel like we've not got much in our weaponry. We haven't got the Philistine armour. We haven't got the big sword and shield. But we see from David that a small pebble, that slingshot aimed in faith, was all the permission that God needed to do great, great things. As we continue with our morning to sing and pray, let's thank God that even when we may feel a loss or overshadowed or just low level worried about something, he is the one who surrounds us and those we care for, and he surrounds us with his love. Let's trust him. Be more David.